And it's a place that's abuzz with energy. You've got enormous numbers of people from all over the world who have come here, and of course many local residents from the United Arab Emirates.
So, of course, as you said, it's not just a tourism show. It is specifically also a trade and investment platform looking at tech and innovation. In terms of investment, you said you're looking to bolster perhaps South Africa's 5-year investment drive. What kinds of engagements are the delegation and specifically President Cyril Ramaphosa and yourself looking to have with investors to draw money into South Africa?
We've started already with discussions with those who buy goods from across the world. These would be the big retailers. And over the next day and a half, we'll be expanding that. The President will be hosting a business forum where we'll have a number of local investors. He will be engaging with them in a Q&A session. But a big part of our growth story is tied up with small business development, giving opportunities to young South Africans and to those without the established means to do so. So we'll also be having a showcase of small business success stories tomorrow. And some of these small businesses have been using the Dubai Expo as a platform to pitch for venture capital funding from players all over the world. And in fact, we've already had more than 150 million rand pledged to South African-based businesses. In addition to that, we're looking at selling South African products. So we have a delivery vehicle that is designed and made in South Africa using an electric motor. They've used their presence in Dubai to attract the attention of local retailers, and there's a big order that we hope they would be able to land. And of course, South African-based products are sold in supermarkets here. There's a company called Hyperama that sells a range of South African goods. And we've engaged with them, met with them, and looked at how can we get more South African goods here. A second level of engagement is with significant investors that can bring long-term capital to South Africa in areas like renewable energy, manufacturing, services. The services sector is important. We've had a focus on mining and technology. Part of the South African story is that we have, on the one hand, all of the great attractions of the physical beauty of the country, but we're also a great place to invest in. So it is fortuitous and helpful that shortly after the investment conference, it was such a boost to confidence in South Africa, we're able to go global and tell that same story to investors from an area of the world with significant and very deep capital markets. And our focus now is to try to get those capital markets to respond to opportunities in South Africa, but also to back young South Africans and small businesses. So that would be the kind of engagements over the next day that the President will be leading the South African delegation.
Minister Patel, investors say that one of the major deterrents to investing in South Africa is corruption. Looking at just one example back home, you've appointed a new board at the National Lotteries Commission, but that corruption has continued unabated for a while. How so?
So I think that the really good news is that after years of concerns about corruption, we did something very important. As a department, we ran an independent forensic investigation of the activities of the NLC. The President authorized the Special Investigating Unit, the SIU, to do an investigation. They produced an interim progress report that was tabled in Parliament and debated in Parliament. And we've now replaced the board with new members. They include, among others, someone like Willie Hofmeyer that has worked in the NPA and headed the asset forfeiture unit. These are concrete, practical steps. And this was taken a few days ago to deal with corruption. And in fact, when I spoke to one of the investors here and I said, what is the attraction of South Africa for you? And the investor said, we are convinced that South Africa has rule of law, that you have an independent judiciary, and that for us is a very significant attraction. So I think our action against corruption, practical action, taking steps, that's an important part of what investors, that will encourage investors to locate in South Africa. So I think with the National Lotteries Commission, it's a positive story we can tell. We've just replaced the board a few days ago with 4 new members. The 2 existing members continue until the end of this month. We involved in a process there, but 4 new members have been appointed to the board. So in that sense, the vacancies have been filled.
Absolutely, I agree with you, Minister Patel. Sorry to jump in there.
We need to obviously deal with, but I think we're getting a very good reception here in Dubai.
I absolutely agree with you. Good that the board members have been replaced and that those positions have now been filled. However, out of 50 investigations, only 12 have been completed so far into the National Lotteries Commission, and already 300 million rand has been earmarked as having been siphoned off for corrupt activity. So that number, when those 50 investigations have been completed, is very likely to increase quite drastically. And if I were a foreign investor, I would ask, well, why should I put money into the country if the country cannot hold on to its own money? And then we have to ask the question, what are the processes in terms of trying to recover those many millions?
So only let me make the point that when we had the investment conference, a similar kind of narrative as you're putting forward now was put to large investors on a public stage. And one of the investors, Adrian Gore of Discovery, said that what we're seeing as the practice in South Africa is significantly more positive than the narrative that points only to the problems. And he recounted that when he started in the business community 20 odd years ago, the storyline was all negative. And he looked around and he realized that the reality of the country was a lot more positive. And he bet on that. And he's been able to build a very large company. Now, I raise that because here is government taking very firm and clear action. The fact that the SIU has been able to identify such a significant number of transactions that are suspicious, are irregular, where there are instances of improper benefit, is what has been the result of governance action, that the president has appointed the SIU, that we've done these kind of things. And of course, we live in a constitutional democracy, so it has to be done in accordance with rule of law. And that means every transaction is investigated separately. It means bank accounts are looked at. It means books of account are scrutinized. And the SIU, following due process, has already been able to uncover a range of these. And there's a history of action we're taking against corruption. So I'd like to invert what you've raised. And I've said, here is an example of a government that is actually dealing with corruption. And it should be something that should do more often, more regularly. We should be doing it every time there is an allegation like this. And this is what investors want to see. Investors work across the world. They've seen you have corruption in many parts of the world. For them, the key issue is, does government act against that corruption? Do we do something about it? Do we hold people to account? Do we take action? And that is what President Ramaphosa has done. He said, let's take action against corruption. It's not only make points about the importance of an environment that is open to investment, but where people, in fact, act wrongly, let's hold them to account, bring them to book, as the saying goes. So if your question is about how this would be viewed by international investors, my answer is very positively, that we are able to do that. And they also want to know about the rest of the South African storyline. Where is the growth opportunities? And we've been able to unpack the integration of African markets through the African Continental Free Trade Area. They want to know, are we dealing with the energy challenge? Because they're aware of the energy challenge. and we're able to showcase the role now that renewable energy will be playing as part of a much more diversified set of energy sources. And they'd like to know also, of course, very importantly, what are the long-term prospects of dealing with the other infrastructure challenges. A modern economy is built on very strong fiber optic networks, the availability of water and transport logistics, and it's the reforms that we introduce in each of those areas that can help to distinguish South Africa now, make us stand out in the global community as a place that is tackling its challenges and where people need to bring their money to help us grow our economy and create more jobs. And that message is resonating when we raise it here.
Thank you so much for your time, Minister of Trade and Industry, Ebrahim Patel, speaking to us from the Expo 2020 Dubai.